So, hi, welcome to this special episode of the PKF Podcast. I'm joined by Lachlan Stevens, the founder of the Raising the Bar Foundation. Thanks for joining me, Lockie, on this special episode in acknowledgement of Anzac Day tomorrow.
No, thanks, Emma, and thanks to PKF for supporting our charity.
Of course, look, we're really excited to be involved. Anzac Day is a day that, really hits home. It means a lot for us here with our partners and our staff. So we're really keen to have this conversation and support Raising the Bar and Walk With Us Kokoda. So to start off with, why don't you explain a little bit about yourself, how you've come to be the founder of Raising the Bar and Walk With Us Kokoda, and we can crack on.
So my name's Lachlan Stevens. I spent 6.5 years in the Army. Most of that time was as a combat engineer in the Royal Australian Engineer Regiment, and it included 2 deployments over to Afghanistan as a high-risk searcher. My job over there was to search for improvised explosive devices, which sounds very intense, and at times it was, but with that intensity was also a lot of reward and purpose. And when I got back from Afghanistan in 2012, I transferred out of the Engineer Regiment and went into a different career within the Army. And I lost that connection to purpose, and that subsequently led to quite a dark spiral in terms of my own mental health. And I decided it best to leave the Defence Force and kind of, I guess, find myself again. The problem, and I think it's not only my experience, it's a shared experience with a number of veterans leaving the Defence Forces. Well, what is that next step? I'm a warfighter. How does that translate into the corporate world? And I was lucky enough to get a job with Merlin Entertainments and found my niche in change management. And Merlin Entertainments, for anyone out there that doesn't know, is an entertainments company. They own Sea Life Sydney Aquarium, Wildlife Sydney Zoo, Madame Tussauds, and a number of attractions around the world. And I kind of refined my business acumen, I guess, within that company, and then decided to go off and do it all for myself. And found a for sale business down in Wollongong called His Boy Elroy. It's a burger sports bar, and we took it over, and I just began that process of change management there. And that's when I started to find this renewed sense of purpose that I was longing for, that I hadn't had since 2012. And that's where Raising the Bar and Barstool Brothers was formed.
Wow. Okay. What a journey. Thank you for sharing. So unpack that for me. When you say that it's not every day you talk to someone that found the charity themselves, especially as a Wollongong girl. I know all about His Boy, and it's quite close to my heart. So, buying a hospitality business, taking what you know to be true of your lived experience as a vet, how has that then shaped Raising the Bar and Barstool Brothers, and how has all of that, come to be over the last few years?
So what the Army gave me, what my service gave me, was a deep respect to the process of values-based decision-making. My values are rooted in authenticity, loyalty, and community especially. That's a strong value of mine. And I wanted that reflected through my business, and I wanted my decisions be reflected through that values-based decision process. And that led us to invite all our community, men in our community, down for a free burger and fries one night, just to create a space where men can talk. And that came after several months of running the business and noticing that a lot of blokes come up, have a burger, have a beer and watch some sports. But our staff behind the bar, of which I was more prominently behind the bar, found ourselves in this role of accidental counsellor. And just by the very nature of the environment and my own lived experience and the lived experience of my venue manager, found ourselves in often deep conversations. And it's not a case that men don't want to speak. It's a case that the environmental conditions aren't set for them to have the chats they need to. And that's the basis of what we wanted to create with this night. We had 70 people rock up the first time, which is awesome. Then a couple of weeks later, we got smacked with COVID. And whilst that was in some cases a traumatic time for a lot of people, it was a very isolating time for a lot of people. And we used our business to deliver burgers to a range of different community groups, whether it's people stood down, high risk categories like men, and our Barstool Brothers charity kind of exploded from there. We were delivering these burgers, and it wasn't about the free food that we're giving away. It was about the connection through the screen door with these people. And from there, it's just spiraled to the point where we're now working with the New South Wales government, and they've funded us to provide mental health and psychosocial risk training to other hospitality venues. It's great we got our community right in at His Boy, and I can do that because I'm in control of the cultural outcomes within our organisation. But how do we change culture within other organisations which serve alcohol, often have vices like gambling and poker machines, and can be quite toxic and negative? We don't want to ruin people's experiences, but we want to say, well, the drinking culture within Australia, alcohol shouldn't be the centre of a catch-up. It should be a component of, and that's fine, but connection needs to be the centre and the purpose of going down to the pub with your mates. And that's where Healthier Hospitality was born. Healthier Hospitality is a 90-minute psychosocial risk program that we've developed in consultation with the University of Wollongong. And we're conducting the largest survey on the state of the hospitality industry with relation to mental health. And we've been training venues around New South Wales, and we're currently at around 5,000 staff trained across New South Wales, and we'll be moving on to the new phase of lobbying government to change some regulations, whether that be in responsible service of alcohol or gambling, in how we can embed those psychosocial risks considerations within that training module. So that's exciting. But I guess we're here to talk about Anzac Day, and that kind of leads us on to our other initiative, which is Walk With Us Kokoda.
It is, and I'm excited. I mean, obviously we're involved this year, so I'm excited for the trek in particular this year, but I have also followed along in some of the experiences that you have done yourself over Kokoda over the last few years. You have walked it 3 times now,
Yes.
Which is a lot, and it's amazing to be that committed to it. So tell us a little bit about Walk With Us Kokoda, how that came to life, and what's the lived experience of the trek, doing it yourself and those that you do it with?
So we're all about creating environments to elicit stories and connection with each other. And there's no better place to do that than in Kokoda on the trail. And the reason for that, and we discovered this in 2023 when we trekked in Kokoda. We took a whole bunch of Barstool Brothers, some veterans, some non-veterans, but also partnered with the Man Walk, another men's charity. We filmed a documentary while we were over there, which is still in production, which is pretty exciting. But it explores this concept of how you can put people in unfamiliar environments, which are significant from a military history perspective, and learn the stories from a historical perspective and the underlying lessons in them, whether it's around sacrifice, resilience, mateship, endurance. And you can build incredible bonds with those people you're walking with, because it's you, some hills, and your mates. you can disconnect as well. And it's a really cathartic experience where you can soak up the environment, the history, the connections with others, but also you can reflect on your life and your journey and what are some of those goals that you might have. And for me personally, the first time I did it, I got a lot out of that, and I was compelled to re-engage with this veteran kind of identity that I'd shoved down, because we often kind of veterans look at themselves as they don't want to be known as that broken veteran. And I'd got discharged from the Defence Force, and then I'd become a business owner, a community leader, a charity founder. And I left that experience. I'm like, okay, I can be a veteran again. And that's when I started to kind of think, well, how do I best use my skills to give back to the veteran community? And the best way was staring right in front of me. It was Kokoda. And that's where Walk With Us Kokoda was born. Now, Walk With Us Kokoda in a nutshell, it's my elevator pitch. It's a leadership development program for veterans. We're partnered with RSL New South Wales to take veterans over to Kokoda. And what we want to do is recruit those veterans based on their willingness to involve themselves in the betterment of the communities that they exist in. It doesn't have to be a veteran community. It can also be just a broader community. And we don't want to be prescriptive in how they want to involve themselves in. They might have a great idea. They just might know how to execute. And going into the RSL sub-branch ecosystem might be quite a daunting, unfamiliar place, which is bogged down by bureaucracy sometimes and ego and politics. But at Raising the Bar, we want to be the incubator to these ideas, and we want to mentor these veterans to go over to Kokoda, workshop their ideas on how to better the communities they exist in, then come back to Australia and then implement and execute on those ideas. So, for example, there's someone here in the Illawarra launching a lawn mowing initiative. So it's called Lawn Duty. Uses our 1,500 strong civilian community down here in Wollongong of men who also want to give back to go out to older veterans' houses and mow their lawn for free. That's also a good way to socially engage with some and often isolated veterans in our community. And we need to incubate that idea through our charity, and the support of companies like PKF allow us to identify those veterans that have something to offer around New South Wales and incubate them to ensure that they're given back to their community in a real, meaningful, impactful way.
So you mentioned before this idea of purpose and how, coming home and you've found your sense of purpose. What has the lived experience been of, the civilians and the veterans that you've taken on the hike in finding their sense of purpose?
Yeah, so that's varied, and it's a massive question, because Kokoda can affect and does affect people in different ways, and experiences that challenge you both physically and mentally and emotionally can change people and shape people into different directions. We've had two brothers that went over in 2023 that reconnected over there, and they've remained connected. So that might seem small, but in the context of their lives, it's actually quite significant. We've had two people sell their businesses or close their businesses as a result of their journey. We had one female make the decision to leave her husband use that time there to assess her life, and she got strength. And it sounds quite negative, and I'm not suggesting that females go over there to figure out whether they want to leave their partner or not, or anyone for that matter, but it's a space that challenged her and showed her she is actually quite independent, and she is her own person. And that's quite a beautiful kind of narrative, which obviously is clouded by also a difficult situation. But the point is, you're challenging yourself up this hill and you feel like you're going to give up. But you, remember the historical element and the World War II veterans that weren't just walking up that hill, they were fighting up that hill, and you don't want to give up for them. But you also have a moment of reflection where you think, well, if I can get past this, I can get past anything in life. And likewise, if someone has been through a significant event in their life, you can use that as an anchor point and go, well, actually, you know what? I've gone over to Afghanistan and I've searched for IEDs. This is going to be a walk in the park, and I'm going to get through it. So that's a couple of ways people use the environment to shape their experiences on the back end. One beautiful story we had was someone, a male. He was quite closed off, and he was a victim of child sexual abuse, and he used that to let it all out and leave it on that hill in Kokoda. And it was quite a cathartic experience for him to let something leave something on that hill that he'd held on to for decades, and using that experience as a catalyst for moving forward was quite significant. So it gives me an immense amount of pride to be able to be a part of that story, even if it's in one little way, about curating that environment for those experiences, for people to find renewed sense of purpose, let go of trauma, but also set goals for themselves to better themselves and their communities.
Yeah, well, that's really moving. And what an amazing sense of achievement on your part to be a part of this. I can imagine the fulfillment you must be getting off the back of these experiences are just life-changing for yourself.
Well, that's kind of my why. So if anyone's familiar with Simon Sinek, they would know the power of why. My why is to clear the path so others can walk freely behind. And what that means, and it has tones of leadership, but it also has tones of, in society, and I think we can all agree, there's a lot of people who talk the talk, whether it's in workplaces or within the broader community, but there's little action which sits, and substance which sits under that. And that's one thing that really motivates me to want to do better, to have actual impact. And when you have that actual impact, and quite selfishly, it's fulfilling for me, and it gives me something. And that's something that drives me forward. And we refer to it as service after service. And you can find an extreme sense of purpose in service to your family, service to your community, service to particular causes, service to your workplace. But that flipping that narrative from such a selfish world and selfish people within this world to actually, you know what, I'm going to give back, and I'm going to be a better citizen and a better leader within my communities, can actually, in a roundabout way, give you so much personally. And that's what we want to inspire in our documentary that we're making, and it's what we want to inspire by even doing this podcast.
Definitely. And I think we will. So, give us an idea of what you want the future of Raising the Bar and Walk With Us Kokoda to look like in the next 5-10 years?
So what we want to do is get as many veterans over to Kokoda who subscribe with this mentality that I've discussed today about leadership and about giving back to their communities and bettering their communities. And if we can build a cohort, one, we can address some of the issues within the veteran community more broadly, whether it's around advocacy for outcomes of the Royal Commission in Defence and Veteran Suicide, or the betterment of organisations like RSL New South Wales and individual sub-branches where these people who have been incubated into developing community-based programs can take that experience, just like I did, into their local sub-branches and improve that offering for younger veterans. So hopefully in the next 5 years, we've got a really strong cohort of people to lead the veteran community into the future. But on the other hand, in terms of the broader community, we have a cohort who have had impact within their broader communities, and the communities can see and are aware of that. There's this stigma within society in general that veterans are broken, or I might be a little bit timid or shy from asking questions about their service because I don't want to trigger any emotion, all of that kind of that stuff. And in some cases they're right, but we need to respin that narrative to say, well, actually there's something really valuable about a veteran's experience. From a workplace perspective, you'd get no better employment opportunity than hiring a veteran. It might take a little bit more to reskill them and train them, but once you have them, they've got they've got a lot of convictions and values-based decision approach because of their experiences in the Defence Force. And we want to change that perception within the broader society about veterans being somewhat of a victim class, but veterans being an asset class.
Yeah, wonderful. And that's such an aspirational goal for the charity and for all the works that you do. And I have no doubt that you'll achieve it, because you achieved so much in a short period of time. I feel we'll be able to have this conversation in 2 years that you've done all of that immense work, and you'll be looking to take something else on in the next 5 years. And who knows, you may have tricked me or convinced me to actually do the hike with you one of these days, maybe in the next 5 years, fingers crossed. So to wrap up, because obviously PKF is involved and we are so thrilled to be involved. As I said, it's a Anzac Day, and servicemen and servicewomen are real close to our hearts, given the lived experiences of our employee-based. But just in your own words, tell us why it is so important to have people like PKF involved in achieving what you want to achieve in the next 5 years.
It's so important to have PKF and other corporate partners involved, because, as I said, the veteran community at some times can remain insular and inward facing, which is great to build esprit de corps. But what we need to do is amplify our message and the value of veterans through the broader community. The way we do that is partnering. The way we do that is doing podcasts like this and involving businesses and corporates in this journey of initiatives like Walk With Us Kokoda. And if we can expose your workplace to this cause, it goes a long way to developing an understanding and an appreciation, but also see opportunities for, say, veteran employment, and also how you can engage in the veteran community in a meaningful, impactful way.
Yeah, great. And that's it. That's our goal, is to participate in a meaningful and impactful way, and not something that's just a bit of a tick box or a tokenistic gesture. So what I will do, if you are keen to be involved, to donate or follow along with the story, or even walk the track yourself, All of the details will be linked in the episode description, as well as all through our website and our socials if you want them. And thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Emma, and thank you to PKF.